let's finish up the sermon by just talking about what's going to happen in the end times. You think God is just going to allow these imposters to just come in there and steal and murder and take over the land and be their own Messiah? And instead of looking to Christ and looking to the Lord to give them the promised land, they're going to take it for themselves? You think God's going to let that go unpunished? Let me tell you something. God's wrath is on Israel, and Israel is going to be punished severely in the end times. In fact, they're going to be punished the most severely of anyone. So here's the history of the unbelieving Jews as we know it. They rejected Christ. They were a curse everywhere they went throughout 2 millennia. They came back into the promised land, not with the Lord's help, but with the help of the Rothschilds, through Satan, through Antichrist and his spirit. And they came into the promised land, and they've usurped that land. Why are they there? They are there to fulfill Bible prophecy, yes, because they are going to be the ones who are instrumental in bringing the Antichrist to power. Okay? Now, what's going to happen in the end times? In the end times, they are going to rebuild the temple, and the Antichrist is going to be their ally. They're going to put the Antichrist into power, but the Antichrist is going to turn on them, and he is going to declare himself to be God in the temple, and he is going to turn around and wipe them out. Okay, so he's going to double-cross them, and many Jews are going to be killed at that time. Many of the Israelis are going to be killed at that midpoint of the next Daniel's 70th week. Remember the first Daniel's 70th week that we talked about as being 70 AD. But then there's another future fulfillment where there's going to be the Antichrist and the temple and so forth. Well, then after a whole bunch of them get killed at that time, when Jerusalem is trodden underfoot of the Gentiles and laid desolate for 42 months, right, at that midpoint of the 7 years, then God's going to shortly thereafter start pouring out his wrath on this earth. And guess what? They're going to be on the receiving end of a lot of that wrath being poured out. They're not going up in the rapture, that's for sure. They're going to be on this earth, having God pour out his wrath on them. Then, if they survive the Antichrist, and then if they survive God's wrath, and they're like, oh man, we made it to the end, then Jesus is going to set up his kingdom, his millennium. And when he sits on his judgment seat, he's going to start giving out rewards, and he's rewarding this servant. Be thou over 10 cities, be thou over 5 cities, be thou over 2. He's going to say, oh, and by the way, bring hither those men that would not have me to rule over them, and slay them before me. Because in the parable, the citizens of that man, they wrote a letter after him and said, we will not have this man to rule over us. And when he comes back and he rewards his servants, he wipes out the ones who refuse to have him rule over them, which are representative of the Jews rejecting Christ. So they're going to get what's coming to them.